From the earliest days of the Peace Corps, volunteers matched their enthusiasm against the challenges of poverty and isolation. In return, they received the richness of culture, community, and friendship. In towns and villages around the world, and in the towns and cities of the USA, the experience carried forward in memory and myth, or was forgotten. But for one town in El Salvador and one volunteer, Tim Lavelle, memories and myth were enshrined in a documentary film that had been commissioned by Peace Corps in the 60s.
In the harshly rolling hills of the province of Chalatenango is Agua Caliente. The town itself has a population of only 800, but it is a municipal center for the rural cantons. Ojo de Agua, Santa Rosa, and Agua Fria are some of their names, and in their hills live 5,000 people. They are farmers of land which was never meant to be farmed, and inheritors of ignorance, poverty, sickness. But no generalization would do them justice, for they are individuals, all living a life which has its daily pattern, also those moments of hope and beginning.
I was the first North American ever in this town, in the history of Agua Caliente. I said, what? What? Where are you from? Where? And when I got here, I could have easily dropped in off of the moon. People, of course, were glad to see me. I was kind of a collector's item for a while. People came in, they looked over my suitcase, and I had 5 or 6 shirts in there. They automatically considered me to be the richest man in town. As I used to do in the old days, asking kids, you know, what do you want to do? You want to be a fireman? You want to be a policeman? Do you want to buy a boat, a gondola, and sing Italian songs? So I asked Betty, I said, what do you want to be, a nurse? A teacher? And she said, no, I'm not going to be a nurse or a teacher. I'll be here in Agua Caliente. I'll have children. And I'll still be making tortillas. That's it. Nothing more. So she was opposed to it, sure, but opposed to it in the only sense that she could be opposed to it, with the youngness of her days. With the fact that she is 9 years old, and that thus far she hasn't been overwhelmed by the sadness, hasn't been overwhelmed by the harshness of life. But that's coming. And so the possibilities of becoming a nurse, of becoming a teacher, for her now doesn't exist. This is the type of thing that you see out in Agua Caliente, and in 100,000 Agua Calientes all over the underdeveloped world. It's this sense of the equality of persons, and at the same time the recognition that there is not an equality of opportunity.
Gradually, Tim began to find the people who cared about the progress of Agua Caliente in the cantons. Santa Rosa had the strongest leadership. Don Camilo, Don Leonardo, and Francisco Landaverde, Don Chico to his friends.
Don Chico told me that when Gregorio, his eldest son, was in the 4th grade in Agua Caliente, that he came to his father one day and said, I'd like to try to plant a little plot of corn this year, help you out. We have more brothers and sisters in the family now, and I think it's about time that I got busy and started helping to make a little money for the family. Don Chico said, absolutely not. I'm going to go on and finish the 6th grade. And when he finished the 6th grade, he came back and he said to his father, I'd like to go on to Flan Básico. I'd like to go on a little bit further because I don't think I have as yet learned enough. And so there he is today in the seminary, and he's the first person in the history of Agua Caliente to come out of the hills of Chalatenango into the seminary. And he'll probably be the first priest in the history of Agua Caliente.
At the New Alianza School in Agua Caliente, there are 2 more of Don Chico's children. But the daily 5-mile walk from Santa Rosa requires a physical effort beyond the younger children. and an educational drive beyond most of their parents. The critical first years of education rest with the primary schools in the cantons. And in Santa Rosa, the primary school was one room, dark, and the tiles from the roof were more danger than protection. The talk about a new school went on among the men. But how could the materials come in? For the road was no more than a path.
It's not a great thing, but it is a great thing. Because you've given the people the opportunity at last to do something that I think they've always wanted to do. And that is to live a little bit better. The love of one's children, or the love of one's community, something which really can't be put down. And it has been put down for such a long time in these places. So at last, here's Don Chico with an opportunity, and Don Camilo with an opportunity. And they're going to get out there and they're going to talk this thing up. And they're going to get people on their side. And so that when you go out there again, and you're talking about the weather, or you're talking about the problems out in the corn patch, they begin to say, well, what about this school? What can we do on this? I've got this idea. I have some trees out back that I can give for the making of wooden rafters, or for utilizing wood for the doors, or pillars for the corridors, or what have you. And so it begins.
¿Quién tuvo esa idea, sacar los niños allí de la escuela?
Fue Francisco.
¡Ajá! ¿Dónde están estos niños para trabajar? Y no tuvo ningún problema con los padres de familia.
No hubo ninguno.
Ningún padre lo pasó allí y dijo, no quiero mi hijo trabajando en la escuela.
Ninguno, todos dijeron, Santa Rosa se abrió.
Ah, sí.
Aquí
bueno esto.
están mis hijos para que le ayuden en lo que necesiten.
Ajá, fue bueno entonces.
And so this meeting, in reality, is the culmination point. It's the fact that finally people have thought this over, and they said, yes, we want to do that. The road, in the case of Santa Rosa, was something that made the school possible, because you just couldn't haul the materials out to Santa Rosa if you didn't have the road. And so, quite early one morning, we loaded the tiles on the truck. Big truck, lots of tiles. Roughly 9 miles from Agua Caliente, the dirt road starts, and it weaves its way in snake-like fashion into Agua Caliente. But the road is passable on the road to the school. And there we slowed down to a crawl, inch by inch. The road was built for ox carts, the road was built for jeeps, but the road certainly wasn't built for a 10-ton truck. And Don Arturo became more and more apprehensive. My God, my truck, my 22,000 Cologne truck. Will I ever see it ever again in San Salvador? The truck was enveloped by the people. Once you started on that road, there was no turning back. Just as once we started on the construction of that road, there was no turning back on the school or on all of these other things. So that once that truck actually started out there, there was no turning around. That truck was going to get through. It was going to get through because the people had a sense of urgency to get that truck through. Once you have the people on the move, they're not going to stop. We couldn't begin the school until the dry season began because you can't make adobes during the wet season. So we had a tremendous problem with the scarcity of water for the actual construction of the school. This is not done. The school, the walls aren't raised, the roof isn't put on in a day or in a week or in a week of days. This is something which goes on because we're working when the people can work. The people can't work every day because they have their own families to look after. People have to go out and begin clearing off the land. People have to go out and begin plowing the land in preparation for the seeding, the actual seed time. And therefore, maybe the roof isn't on. And you have people who are torn between their obligation to their family and the fact that they really want to get the school done and the walls are up, and if the roof does not go on, the walls will fall down because they're mud walls. So you, on the one hand, scarcity of water, one day you're hauling water 2 miles, and the next day you've got a tremendous overabundance of water. The weather's against us.
Pila para colocarla ya. ¿Está bien? Sí, magnífico. Vaya.
100 years ago in America, we have the image of Abraham Lincoln in his log cabin, sitting by the fire, reading the Bible and John Bunyan. And that's not much different than sitting out in Santa Rosa, reading by Coleman Lantern. We have this image of the past, that 100, even 50 years ago in the United States, anyone who had 2 years of schooling, the man that could read and write, had really done something. This was the educated person. In Santa Rosa today, and in all of Agua Caliente, we have the same critical step, the step out of the past into the village school, the step out of the farmyard into the second grade. This is the giant step.
In 1967, Tim Lavelle completed his Peace Corps service. He took the learning into a career of devotion to humanitarian efforts. Hurricanes in Nicaragua, earthquakes in Haiti, famine in Africa, disasters in Asia and Europe. Working first with CARE, then with USAID, Tim has been equally at ease with villagers and at the highest levels of government.
An ex-Peace Corps volunteer who subsequently became a congressman and now is an ambassador, Tony Hall, Dayton, Ohio. I worked with Tony for a while in Europe, and at one point he met with Mother Teresa in Calcutta. And he said, Mother Teresa, you know, there are people who say about your work, isn't this just a drop in a bucket? And Mother Teresa said, No, it's not a drop in a bucket. It's a drop in an ocean. But if I did not do this, it would be one less drop. In the 1970s, I was the care administrator for the northwest of Haiti. This time around, due to this massive and horrible earthquake of January 12, 2010, which killed 230,000 people in and around the capital, Port-au-Prince, I was designated as the, in the U.S. Response Coordinator's office as the donor coordinator. There are at the moment something like 1,000 non-governmental organizations working in Haiti, 20 major UN organizations there. And then, of course, there are the multilateral banks, including the Inter-American Development Bank, the World Bank. So my job was trying to herd all these cats, and from a U.S. government perspective, and try to make sure that we had complementarity in our efforts with what other donors were doing. You're constantly modifying your strategy. There are a lot of failures out there. You have projects designed in a think tank or designed in a capital that haven't been properly vetted, haven't been properly discussed at the local level, and so they are doomed sometimes to failure. The key is getting out beyond the walls of the embassy, of the USAID office, of the U.S. government installation, and communicating directly with people. And that's the Peace Corps way of doing business. And that's superb. Okay, so you always carry that lesson along with you. Someone like Francisco Landaverde, who was basically illiterate, that if he had had the opportunities, he had the charisma to be the president of the country. The statement of Secretary Clinton that talent is universal, opportunity isn't. Okay.
Y la letra dice de la siguiente manera. Entonces, Saga nos acompaña. Por esa tierra del hambre, yo vi pasar a un viajero. ¡Esa palma! Humilde, manso y sincero, valientemente profeta, que se enfrentó a los tiranos para pensarles de libre y asesinar a su hermano para defender a los vivos. Ahora matar al profeta, pero su voz de justicia no, y encontrar el silencio, pero la historia no callará. Ahora matar al profeta, pero su voz de justicia no.
What was it like to live here when the Civil War was going on?
¿Cómo era, dice, la vida aquí cuando la guerra estuvo en lo mero mero? Era triste. It was sad.
Mucha gente migró para la capital y otros para otros países.
People left, you know, they went to the capital or
Un poquito más de facilidades, eso.
otro país,
Sí, los que no teníamos
another
los
country.
quedábamos a sufrir.
If you don't have any money, you just stay here and suffer and hope for the best.
Did it turn out for the best?
¿Cree usted que al final resultó algo bueno? O sea, pasó eso y estamos un poco mejor o vamos para allá?
No, eso, la guerra solo trajo destrucción nomás, a terminar el país.
Where it was just
O sea, ahorita
destruction
estamos en
and
recuperación.
we're recovering, but the worry was nothing than bad things. So now it's just all about recovering.
Which is now, it's 20, 25 years. Yes?
Yeah.
It's a lot of time.
Yeah. I think it is. It's going to take even more than that.
Through the years and the many faces of U.S. foreign policy that affected El Salvador, the memory of a volunteer who represented American commitment and generosity endured. The legacy crafted by Timothy Lavelle, Francisco Landaverde, and their compadres attained mythic proportions. In 2010, The movie from the 60s, Beyond Agua Caliente, was discovered on YouTube by a Landaverde grandson, Pedro. His uncle Elmer, the youngest son of Don Chico, now a successful businessman, had the movie translated into Spanish, and it was shown in the community. Memories and stories were shared between generations. The myth became tangible.
Pero eso es común. 5.000 personas son trabajadores de una tierra que nunca fue diseñada para ser trabajada. Herederos de ignorancia, pobreza y enfermedad. Pero
in April of 2011, welcomed by the Landaverde family, Tim Lavelle and the former Peace Corps filmmaker returned to Agua Caliente.
Cafe over here. Huh? You gotta get that.
Buenas tardes. Después de haber escuchado cada uno de los testimonios y los mensajes que los diferentes personajes y líderes de nuestra comunidad nos han dejado,
after listening to all the stories and the testimonials over the past years, from all the different personalities and leaders, we have the history of Agua Caliente in our hearts. It is the fruit of the hard labor of Timoteo, to whom we are all thankful on this day. We are honored that you are here. The warmth that you are feeling is more than just the weather, it comes from our hearts. This plaque is an expression of our recognition.
La cual reza así: por haber iniciado un cambio trascendental en Agua Caliente a partir de la década de los...
The inscription says, for having started a major change in Agua Caliente from the decade of the 60s, he discovered, invented, and motivated the abilities of the people, and in this way contributed to economic and social development, like the foundation of the cooperative, the creation of roads, bridges, schools, and nutritional planning. And so this plaque is in recognition for your life and work in Agua Caliente, dated April 1st, 2011.
We held endless meetings because this money's involved here, right? So you're going to put money and you're going to into a society which is going to be run by local people. Well, how do we know we can trust them? And what are the rules of the cooperative? We got to understand this, and so on and so forth. But it's an amazing example of, again, when you have this trust. When you take an idea, which is a good one, they're going to run. The local folks They're no dummies. They're going to run with this, okay? And so it's my understanding that at the moment, from just doing this in somebody's home and, I don't know, having a strong box under the bed or under the cot, that now they have a 2-story building, which I'm sure has a big strong box and all sorts of linkages, okay? When you build these cooperatives to do savings and loans, they're going to retain the money at the local level, and they're going to be lending at the local level. So the money flow doesn't go from the rural areas to the capital. The money flow stays in that region, okay? And so it gives people an opportunity.
Their savings of this cooperative here in Agua Caliente today, $7.5 million, and their loan portfolio is $7.2 million. So how many agricultural loans and business loans are benefiting from this project, which we were fortunate enough to get collaboration on and start in 1966. So it takes some time. Put the seed in the ground, takes some time for the tree to grow. They're the children and grandchildren of the folks who reached in their pockets and of the few colones, the money at that time, that they had, we need to put it into a cooperative. Instead of buying Panama hats or buying the local liquor or what have you. Or that if somebody said at some point in time, this cooperative is going to have $7.5 million in savings, people would have thought they were nuts. They were crazy. Ahí que bien. Tiene que ahí tienen a la banda y después tienen mi amigo ahí. Todos están ahí. Hombre, tan boring.
A town without history is not a town. We hope that your example will light the way for people to understand what is possible, to say, yes, we can do it. It is possible. Thank you, and may God bless you.
Salí de Agua Caliente en mayo del año 67.
I left Agua Caliente in 1967, and today I stand again on this hallowed ground. In 1967, in Santa Rosa, Francisco Landaverde launched our effort to construct a school with the phrase, Santa Rosa se abrió. Santa Rosa is open, meaning open to the will of the people and opening of the road to the future. Maybe now we can say that this road to Agua Caliente and the other towns is also open. Agua Caliente se abrió.
Digo, no quiero mi hijo trabajando en la escuela.
Ninguno, todos está bueno. Santa Rosa se abrió.
Ah, sí.
This is the place where my family live. This is the place where my father thought about our future, and working with Mr. Timoteo Labelle, they built a bridge for us.
And you all crossed it in different ways.
A lot of different ways.
es un verdadero, Gregorio, un verdadero hijo de Don Francisco
Landaverde.
No puedo decir más.
Sí. He's truly Francisco Landaverde's son.
Timoteo le trasladó a mi papá de que había que desarrollar a la mujer.
I want to say that Don Timoteo was able to communicate to my father the importance of empowering women. And I think that all of us sisters, all 5 of us, benefited because the education we received is what allowed us to develop. We have the resources to learn and we know how to use them. We're going to do some big things in the future.
Elmer was saying that this idea of giving back from what their father gave them, they've been thinking about this for a year and a half or 2 years. And finally they found a really good local promoter, and that's this Father Rafael Fuentes, who's one of the 2 priests in the community. So they were talking to him, and on the 15th of April they're going to have a organizing meeting in Agua Caliente to see how they can proceed with setting up this foundation. One of the inspirations for doing this was the film that you made, Paul, paid for by Peace Corps, and that when this film finally, thanks to Pedro, showed up in this region, sort of brought into focus the aspirations and the leadership and the vision of Francisco. The things they'd gotten over the years with the war and other events had sort of gotten kind of fuzzy, had gotten sort of out of focus. And this film brought back what Francisco was trying to do, not only with his family and immediate neighbors, but sort of his vision for moving people collectively together forward. And so to a certain extent, or maybe to a great extent, this film, once it was found and brought back and shown to people, became a catalyst for bringing people together to think about, okay, well, what do we do now? How do we carry this vision along further?
In that place, only what exists a really small and poor house, and their custom for the mind of my father was a little bit really small, but when he talked with Mr. Timoteo Labelle, her mind could expand your ideas, your vision, and he can see the future. He can observe or view the future.
A better future.
The future, because maybe in that moment he didn't have a future.
We're just inundated with words, but you give your word, and it's important. And that's what this film is all about. Francisco, in that community, gave his word. I'm going to do this. We're going to do this. And he did it.
Now you're back here and stuck with it too.
I'm stuck. What can I say? I thought I was out of this mess after 45 years. I gave my word, but hey, a lot of water has gone under a lot of bridges. Here I am, back in the fray. All right.
Buscad lejos hoy y tengo un cantar al bello lugar que me vio nacer. Doquiera que voy, yo siento el placer de poder gritar, soy del Salvador, soy del Salvador. Eres bella como una flor, linda novia del ancho mar. Eres tono y eres altar, tierra mía del Salvador. Al pie del volcán, ameno jardín, los bosques están rodeando el confín, frescura y verdor, doquiera se ve, y en medio la flor de café. Eres bella como una flor, tierra mía del Salvador. Eres